Well, hello and welcome. And if you all want to, you're welcome to come more forward if you want. But I'm just so happy to see you all today. Some of you I've already met, which is really lovely, and thank you for joining me. So what I do is I am a channel. I channel ancient languages. I channel sound and song, this beautiful healing that comes through, and whatever information that follows it. I work with ancestral lineage, and I also work with the day-to-day. I work with houses and businesses and land, anything that can carry our energy and carry the energy of our ancestors, because we are all carrying the energy of our ancestors in our as we discussed today earlier, in our bones. We have the energy of our ancestors in our bones. It's in our DNA, it's in our blood, it's in our voice. So one of the things that's really important is to be able to access our own truth. And the more that we can access our own truth and our own voice, the more grounded in our lives we are, the more aligned we feel, the more connected with our own self, our intuition, the people around us, because we're carrying this idea of our own individual connection, which connects us to the collective, to everyone on the planet, including the planet, the universe, whatever the energy is. So how I do this is a little bit different and a little bit fun. I love it. It's my joy. It is a huge joy. So I want to talk about 3 things and then maybe share a little story. And we're also going to do a healing while we're all together. Yay! Because it's really important to feel that connection, to feel the grounding, to feel your personal space so that you can tap into what is your voice and what voice belongs to someone else. And I will take questions at some point. But I want to start with 3 things that come to me. The first is alignment of breath, right? When we have our breath, when we are aware of our breath, of breathing, we have a presence in our body. We're able to be present to the moment, to be present to our lives, even if it's just one breath. If we take one conscious breath an hour, then we're like, woohoo, we can feel our bodies in that one breath. And if we can feel our bodies in that one breath, then we are connected to presence. I call it presence or source. We have so many names for what that huge energy is that is in all of us. I am taking a quick moment to do one quick thing, which is remind myself when I have to stop. Okay, taking a breath. So it's the first thing is like alignment to breath. The second is alignment to intuition. I'm going to come back to it. And the third is alignment to voice. So those 3 things, if we carry those things in our bodies, we carry our breath, our intuition, and our voice, we're able to step into determining what story belongs to our ancestors, which is over here, and of course all around us, and what story that we are speaking belongs to us. So my story is that I was born a certain way. I was born, a little different from the rest of my family. I talked to people that they didn't see, and I always had deja vu where I knew things were happening all the time, but nobody in my family understood that. They just thought I was telling stories, and that was my story. My true story is that I repeatedly saw things. I repeatedly had experiences that I had had before. And I also saw things that nobody else saw, and I heard things that nobody else heard. And how many of you here have had that experience? Yes, I figured there's a lot of hands for that, because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't, right? Mm-hmm. This is a very exciting expo. Such beautiful energy here with everyone. I'm just so excited to be here. And so my story was that I felt things differently. I had my own invisible friends. Visible Friends rock. And I had lots of tea parties with them, and I remember this, and they were very supportive. I don't really know. I just knew that I felt their love when I was growing up. And then as I grew older, things shifted and changed, and I tried to suppress all of those fabulous things that we try to suppress when we're young and we don't think are accepted. So we go, okay, it's over here. It's not who I am. It's just this thing. But this thing kept getting louder and louder and louder to the point where it scared me. Anybody ever been scared by their intuition? It's really powerful stuff, right? That intuition and that connection. And so it's easy to go, okay, I'm just going to walk over here. And you can just do that intuition thing over there, right? Because over here wasn't feeling safe. Because the people around me didn't understand it, so I didn't have that context and that soft, cushiony cloud to fall into. And so as I got older, it evolved even more until I had to reach that point where one day I was having an amazing moment I'm just going to go with this memory, because just one thing you should all know about me is I channel everything. So whatever's coming out today is just going to come out in whatever way and form. And one of my memories that is really big is being on a mountaintop in France. I was in Chamonix a long time ago, and it was pouring rain. I mean, like pouring rain. And I was having a moment where I didn't understand all the intuition, and I didn't understand who I was, and I was trying to connect to determine what my story was. And I was crying like the rain, and I remember kneeling down and next to a beautiful tree. I don't remember what kind of tree. I just remember kneeling down and being soaking wet. Because rain is cleansing. It's a blessing. It's a beautiful experience. And I just sat there and I cried and I took some breaths. And next thing I noticed, the rain had stopped and I saw the sun. It was like really bright. And I'm like, how did that happen? And then when I was ready, I opened my eyes, and around me there was no rain and there was sun coming through. But further out, it was still pouring. And I had one of those big experiences that, I had read about, never thought it would happen. But to me, that was a very pivotal moment in my life where I was like, okay, I'm being told that this is actually my story. Right? It doesn't belong to anyone else, and that I get to have this experience of sunshine and rain, and in some moments the clouds opening up, and I'm like, yay, this is exciting. So it was a story that I carried with me, and I was still young. I was still, not that I'm not young now. I was still young. I was in my 20s, and I thought, well, this is pretty cool. I don't know what it means, and I'm going to fast forward to my grandma, who passed away before her 101st birthday. It was 9 days before she turned 101, which is really amazing. And she and I were very close. She was close with all of her grandchildren. And I was there when she passed. And as I sat there, I watched her in her body shifting the energy of the ancestors just by the connection of accepting who she was in that moment and accepting who I was in that moment. And it felt like we worked together in this very peaceful way for her to transition in a way that was very powerful for her and very powerful for me. Because about a week after she transitioned, all these sounds started coming through my body. I was speaking in a different language that I didn't know, and sounds were coming through. And I was a much quieter person, afraid to speak. So when these things started happening, I just kind of threw my hands up and said to the universe, are you kidding me? Do I have to be this person? And it was a very big jolt. And it took me on this path that I now am still on, where I am somebody who makes a lot of noise, holds my hands over people, and I help to transform that idea of generational trauma and generational grief and whatever else we are holding. Because our ancestors don't just bring the grief and the trauma. I know that's what we all talk about. They bring the joy. They bring the stories. And in our bodies, we are holding every memory and every experience, every story from our ancestors, and every story from everyone around us that we meet. Not only that, but we're also holding the idea of the collective, right? So we've got running through us a ton of information at all times. And that's a lot to hold on to. Does that feel like a lot? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the ways to kind of center around that is to breathe, and not just sitting down and having mindfulness and meditation breathing. That's lovely. And many of us can do that. And some of us are like, I don't have time. They need to be able to take a breath and not feel like I need to sit still for it. So there are other ways to do that. Breath is the center of life. It is the thing that allows us to know that we are alive and moving. Because if we are breathing, which we do unconsciously and subconsciously every day, then we're alive. And being alive is the key, right? To be alive, to be able to feel our body, to feel the people around us. And so what is really valuable and important is to align with your breath. So just for fun, go ahead, everyone, just go ahead and take a breath. It doesn't have to be the deep belly breath or the down to the earth breath, just one breath, including the cute puppy that's here. Just one breath. You now go ahead and put your hand on your belly and try a second breath. Just slowly in and slowly out. And then go for one more, a third breath. Just slowly in. Slowly out. Just feel your body. Breath allows us to feel our body and to feel that connection to living and being alive. It is that thing that keeps us going every day when we don't pay attention. It is the thing we hold when we're feeling stressed, the thing we hold when we're feeling grief. We hold our breath when we're afraid to speak. We hold our breath when we're afraid to scream. We hold our breath through so many moments of our lives that we're not actually in our lives when we're not breathing consciously and allowing it to happen. So go ahead and take one more, just for fun. Kicks it. Just for giggles, I was going to say. Just for fun and giggles, let's take a breath. And while you take that breath, I want you to feel whatever part of your body is talking to you, whether it's your belly, your heart, your hands. Let's go ahead and take another breath and feel whatever other part of your body is trying to speak to you. And speak to the person that was walking in. It's all good. So with each breath, aligning with our breath, we're able to speak our truth. Right? We have our breath, we have the presence in our body, so we're connecting to our body. And the thing that happens next is when we connect to our body, we're able to feel our intuition, right? Connect to our intuition. Because we can hear it a little bit louder each time. So for me, my body works like a pendulum. You'll notice that sometimes my hands twitch. Right now you may notice that I am not standing still. Even if I'm having difficulty in my body, I still am not standing still, because there is a movement that happens, that my body is aligning in that moment with source. And source is my connection with my intuition. For me, it is not separate. How many of you feel that? There is no separation, yeah. That feeling of being totally in alignment with your intuition, which is source. It's the word that I use. There's so many different words. Source and presence are the two, I should say, that I use the most. Because this idea of presence, it's really powerful, right? It's presence. The energy is so present in us that we're able to be in our body, use our voice, tell our story, and connect with what is our highest thought or highest good or best decision, whether we turn left or we turn right, whether we go straight or we go in reverse. Whatever option we choose is always, in that moment, the option to choose. And whatever happens, it's just a whole bunch of little branches that come out from that. If we go left or right, there's always something that will show up. When we are aligned with our intuition, it can feel either light, it can feel lighter. And when we're not aligned with our intuition, it can feel heavy. Some people can feel hot or cold. They can feel warm when their intuition is speaking through them. When they're like, oh, should I go to the park today? And they're like, oh, that feels really warm. I'm going to go to the park, right? So it's important to be able to feel and distinguish what that is. And also to talk to your body, right? Because our body and our intuition work in unison when they're connected. And it's harder to hear the intuition if we're not in our body. When I was learning more about who I was, I learned in that world of things that I connected with, the spiritual people that showed up in my life, people that had worked with energy or wanted to work with energy. There was this idea that we needed to be playing in the astral field and just out floating, and that if we were out floating, then we were more connected to our intuition and we were more connected to source. So we're up here flitting around like, butterflies, which are awesome, and we're out here. But the idea is that when we're out there, we actually can't be grounded and present for the people around us. We can't be grounded and present for ourselves. So we needed to kind of come back in. And so this idea of breathing so that we can be here. Just breathing so that we can be here. And I'm going to say it one more time, breathing so that we can be here. Because being here is where we want to be. Because if we're here, then we're connected to all things. If we're here in our bodies, we have a connection to everything. So I'm going to take a breath with you. Because breathing is good. So the third thing of the bell. The third thing is this idea of voice. Our voice holds all the voices that have ever been in our lives. The voices of our ancestors, the voices of our parents, our siblings, our grandparents, friends, co-workers, any family member, any person we meet on the street. There's a story, because we are also with our acquaintances passing stories back and forth. And so our voices are holding all of those stories. And by holding all of those stories, it can get a little bit overwhelming on which energy is ours that belongs to our story. Does that make sense? You can also say yes or no. It's all good. I see heads nodding, so I'm really grateful for that. And so this idea is, if we are connected to our voice, we're connected to our story. So we need to be grounded in our voice so that we can speak what is our story, right? I carry with me a generation of, is what I'm going to say. That's all that's coming through in this moment. But it is this idea of, I mostly am seeing my dad when I'm talking to all of you. My dad is not with us anymore. He passed 2 years ago. And he is still greatly missed. And he was a big presence on this planet. He was just big energy and a loving man, and had a lot of difficulty. And so those stories of his life, the joy and the sadness, the joy and the frustration, especially around technology, the joy and the experience that he had, kind of ended up here. So that when I spoke at some points in my life, I was feeling more like my dad than myself. Does that align with anyone? That feeling that your story, it's hard to determine, right? Whose story we are speaking from. It's all energy. And we can grow up in the most loving home and still not know whose voice that is, because we carry the voices of all the people around us, right? So my story is that I am, in part, this person, this channel. The other story is that I'm a mom, an amazing teen. And I am a writer. I am a lover of all things herbs, nature, trees, and crystals. I haven't introduced you to my crystal yet, have I? I carry this. This is my Herkimer diamond crystal. Works like a vacuum. So if anybody is feeling anything that you don't really want to carry today, or that you feel like you're done carrying, just go ahead and put it in here. It won't affect me. It won't go back to you. It's just here for transformation, right? So if there's something that feels like it wants to transform or change form, because that's all it is, it can go into here. There's something that feels heavy today, it can go into here. It holds an infinite amount of energy. And when I work, Source and I move it through. Specifically Source, but my hands are part of it because it moves it through, because they're shaking all the time. So it's this idea that you can store things in here and you don't have to take them home today. I hope that feels good. Okay, so I think I'm going to switch a little bit up, and what I'm feeling like right now is be really good. I know we're going to take more breaths, and I'll just be really annoying about that, but we're going to do some more breaths, and then and then heard a puppy, and then we're going to kind of sit in, and we're going to go do a little bit of healing, if that all feels good to you. So, and then after that, we're going to kind of go back into this idea of voice and story and intuition and breath and all the fun things. So go ahead and I'm going to do 10 breaths. Yay, we're going to go big. We're going to do 10 breaths. I'm going to take a sip of water while you're breathing. I'm going to slowly breathe my water. Nice and quiet. So go ahead and take 5 more breaths. I love puppies. It's a blessing. Gives me joy. Just feeling your body. And if you're drawn to putting your hands on your belly or your heart or anywhere that they need to be, just feel that. Just center around that place that is calling to you today. Okay. You can have your eyes open or closed, whatever works best. And while you are breathing, I'm just going to do a little bit of more channeling fun. Kiatate astina mako oshtate atiayana maatete ayane and nakiatate o te ayane. ati oshite ayane. Neti titi ayakana ma o tite ayane. Going in and taking a deep breath and feeling your throat. Nahanamaka oane. Feeling your voice. Nikia tite ashtiana ma oana nitianea. Etitititititititia kina mako o titea istitea ya po ona ma atitea ya po ona ma atititititititia ya po ona meniane. Ati ostete atiane etititiane atititiane nakiana mako anea atiane mako anea natia titea natia titea natia titea nakiana mako o titea nako o atitea nako o tate etina mati titu ostana manea. As you are focusing on your throat, keep your breath going. Just these nice, gentle breaths where you can feel your belly rise and fall. And as you are feeling your throat, your voice, this whole area that holds so much energy and so much wisdom, take a breath into it. And allow it to speak to you. Connecting with your intuition with each breath. Istititia koane ane, nitia opatateane, nakia otiteteane, nakia tite ona mahanea, istititia koane. As you are aligning your breath with your presence, nakia tite, and aligning your breath with your intuition, nakato ukate, istitiaya namatianea. Feeling your voice. And allowing it to share with you what you need to in this moment. And maybe it has something to say and maybe it doesn't. But just feeling it. It's a very present part of your body. We all hold fear in our voice. We hold sorrow in our voice. We hold joy in our voice. So being with that in this moment, allowing it to come through. Allowing it to come through. Releasing into the crystal the energy that's not serving you. Allowing it to transform and be held by the crystal in my hand. If there's anything you want to put down today, so you sit with your voice. It's important to also feel the back of your neck. You're very connected. Beautiful chakra holds so much energy. And in our world, there's so much energy around us. And it can affect how we speak, whether it is not speaking, and staying hidden behind our quiet voice, whether it is speaking very loudly and wishing we hadn't, whether it is wishing we were singing, knowing that sometimes it is really, really healthy to scream it out in a car by ourselves, in a room, below, whatever works. Our voice holds so much because it holds our stories. And holding our stories is just this area, just this part of us. And we need to be able to speak our story in whatever form. Whether our story is spoken through words, whether our story is spoken through our hands, whether our story is spoken through music, it needs to be born, it needs to come out and not be hidden behind us. As a woman, I have often held back in speaking my story, in speaking my words with fear. And as a woman, I have learned that it is vital for me to speak and to say what is most important to me. That journey of finding my voice before the sound started coming out. So go ahead and breathe. Keep breathing. Now I want you to follow all the way down into your belly. Just have a hand on the belly. Good. Belly has so many stories. You're going to reconnect your belly to your throat. Your belly to your throat. We're just going to ask for those two things to reconnect today so they can bring you closer to your intuition and closer to settling in with your breath. Just reconnecting those two things. Nakia oshtatayane. Nakia tate atiako oshtanama anadikata tio konama atatea. Nakia tate ishtinimekio tateaya namahane atiatiako oshtate atiane. Nakiana mako estate akiatate atiamo one netiana mako one netiane nako ona makiatate etiaknama atia okotate in the mahani tianea. Kiana maati ashtate atuko ona maanea ashtiatate kia ona mahatate etiakana mahanea nekiaya namako o ana mahanea. Taking 5 more breaths, just feeling each part of your body. Just feeling that presence. Whatever comes up. And when you're feeling ready, those of you close your eyes and go ahead and start. Some of you might feel more thirsty after this, so please drink. If you have water now, if you need to get out and go around that way, there's water. Yay! Just go ahead and drink, because when we're doing things like this, the body is requesting more water so that it can help us feel grounded, so that when we get up, we're feeling connected. I often hear that people feel really lightheaded after a full session. And when they go to stand up, I make them sit for a while and hand water, and I'm glad we have it. So let me try those words again. Since we have water, you're able to have as much as you need today, and it will allow your body to feel the settling in, because not only the energy in here, but all that energy out there. It is a beautiful, beautiful event with a lot of energy, with amazing, amazing people that are bringing this very profound energy today. And it feels really good. It is a lot, and it's important to be hydrated, completely hydrated. So, yay. That being said, thank you all for getting water if you haven't, if you are. So I feel like there's something else I need to say, and then I was going to ask a question. How are you all feeling after that? Good? Okay. Was it a little heavy for anyone, or did it feel okay? What really wants to come through now, because I know that we are all on different journeys, right? Some of you have been connected to your intuition for a long time. Some other people maybe not. The word's fear. So when I speak, it is flowing through so that I'm grabbing whatever words I can hear. When the language comes out, a lot of people ask me if I know what it is. There are a lot of different languages. I'm told a lot of different ancestral languages that come through me. So, of course, let me know that. Naming them doesn't really work, and I can translate not word for word, but the energy of it. So there was a moment there when it was coming out, and there was a very deep resonance that came through, and there's this really deep voice that comes out when Source is really serious about something. Like, we're not going to do that again, whatever that means. That idea of this energy coming through that's really, really big and protective, or really big, and it may not be bringing protective energy, but it is bringing an energy that is doing a clearing in a different way. So it can sound really deep and resonant. It only happened one time. Sometimes it can be a little startling. And so this idea, for me personally, since I'm here sharing this story with you, is that when those sounds started coming through, I was terrified because I thought, well, interesting. I was terrified to speak it, right? As I was saying, as a woman, holding my voice back has been my journey until it wasn't. And it's important to be who we are, right? And so that idea of the things that scare us are sometimes the things we need to move towards instead of away from. The channeling for me was a big one. I had a friend tell me 30 years ago, I think, that I was going to channel, and I said, no. No, there wasn't even a point of conversation after that, because I thought, no, it's not who I am. Turns out it was really who I am. And I had been doing it all of this time, but in different ways, like we all do. We are all able to channel energy, right? I do it in a conscious channel, and also at times a trance channel, which means I definitely don't always remember the conversation. I kind of step out. And so those two things are my truth and my story. And it birthed a lot of experiences from there, and I had to work through this scared of it story. So where I'm now standing in front of you, and also apparently live on TV, sharing my story and not hiding this part of who I am, because it's a big part. It's not even a big part, it just is who I am. And so the wish is that we all are able to learn what our story is, not the story of our mother or our father or our grandparents, but to learn our story in its truth, And that doesn't mean not learn their stories. It just means learn the difference between what is our story and what is somebody else's, so that we can stand in our own body, in our own grounding, and say, this is who I am. This is my connection to source. It starts with my breath. It starts with my alignment and acknowledgement of who I am. And it's my job to be this person out in the world. And now I just have to say, does anybody have any questions? And I do need to check the time because I have a feeling we might get cut off. But does anyone have a question? You don't have to. It could be all really overwhelming with me up here. So, no questions? Yes.
What I heard you say is that it's about finding your boundary when you are and everybody else in your life is, right? In the sense that, your ancestors, right?
Mm-hmm. The boundary between you and your ancestors?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's kind of like a duality problem, right? Because we inherited things we are given because somebody gave to them, right?
Right.
So, like, how do you honor both aspects of that?
That's a really awesome question. So how do we honor both aspects of knowing that we've been given these stories from our ancestors, and we also need to separate ourselves from some of those stories because they don't feel like our own story, right?
And then the aspect of it that you had mentioned, and I'm not sure if it's implied, is that we should live our own stories, right? What kind of transpired out of those 2 points.
Yes. And the idea is to live our own story. So first we have to figure out what that is, right? So in my family, there's a line of salespeople. I come from the history of sales and women, salesmen and women. And so I had to go, oh, that's their story. This is mine, right? Also in my lineage, I lost a lot of family during the Holocaust. So I have Jewish ancestry, and that is part of my story. And that story is without my having lived it in my body, right? And it is, I have certain reactions to things or experiences, feelings inside my body that I can't connect to this lifetime, or my lifetime, my life. But I know that it was an experience that somebody else must have had in that time, that I now have a similar experience or similar knowledge of it within my body, right? So, and we also get the positives. We get the really beautiful things. My dad must be really here today. He is, and I know it. So he's telling me, tell them. So my dad after he was a salesperson for most of his life, he was a comedian. He was so excited. Before he passed, right around the beginning or middle of COVID, he got on America's Got Talent. That was his claim to fame. He was hysterical. It was amazing. And then we had COVID. So then that kind of ended. But this joy that came out of him when he was doing comedy, and he did comedy until he was 84. Sorry, 82. Would have been 84 this year. So he did comedy. He did that when he was 80. I mean, it's amazing. So there's the mixture of the positive and the heavy in my family and my lineage. So for me, the healing that comes through me is the thing that helps to transform that energy. That's my experience. And I think that what we need to do in order to be able to determine which story is ours and which story is, in my case, my dad's story, is to sit with it, to feel our breath, and to know when we're connecting with our intuition, to ask. We can always ask. Our bodies, our energy have the ability to ask and get answers. I didn't go over that, but I know most of you probably know this whole idea of asking, right? Mm-hmm. So that if we ask a question, we get an answer. Whether it is an actual answer or it feels like an answer, we can hear that story and know whether or not it is ours. So one of the ways to determine it, which I said earlier, was this: something might feel heavy or light, right? We're going to turn left. Does left feel heavy today? Or does left feel light today? Does it feel warm in my body? Does it give me that warm feeling of joy? So I can determine which one is the one that I'm needing to, the direction I'm needing to go. Don't know if that's close to answer your question, but this idea is that we need to be able to determine which our story is, and the best way to determine that is to be in our bodies and to find whatever it is, whether we're walking or running. And as long as we're breathing while we're doing those things, then we can hear better and feel better. What is our truth? Does that resonate okay? Okay. If not, we can definitely talk about it when we leave here. Because my timer went off, which means I have to end, but I'm happy to answer more questions if you want to meet me over in my booth. It's the one with the little tables and the flower and the big massage table. So I think that we are good. So Cindy, and I'm just happy to have met you all today in this way. And some of you I've actually met today, and it's been a joy. And some of you I've known before. So it's just been an honor to talk with you all today. And I hope that this was supportive and lovely. So thank you so much.
Thank you.